Hey, welcome back to the Dice Tower. I'm Camilla Cleghorn, and today I'm bringing you another rapid fire roundup. In this series, we tell you about 6 to 8 games. Today it's just going to be 6 for me that we've played recently. Maybe they've been reviewed, maybe they've not, but that we've played recently and just want to give you some kind of quick thoughts on them and of course give you our rating for them as well. So it's not going to be an overview for any of these. I'll give you a general idea about the mechanisms and then what I thought of the play and ultimately where it ranks for me on the score 1 to 10. So with that, let's jump in with the first one. All right, the first game we have here is Co-op. This is a cute little card game a cooperative style card game that I came across at Essen, and I thought it was really interesting. It's kind of a trope on IKEA and putting together IKEA furniture. So in this game, you and a partner are trying to have your relationship withstand putting together an IKEA piece of furniture. And so it's definitely kind of lighthearted, but has a puzzle element where you are trying to put this together with limited information. I thought this was an interesting idea and I was really excited about going into it, but I quickly went downhill and found myself very frustrated. In fact, the more I played this game, the more frustrated I became with it. Until the end, it was just, I thought, pretty unplayable. The rules were clunky, they weren't super clear, it was really too tight of a puzzle, and the whole aspect of you're giving limited information to your partner and to try and play the best card that meets certain goals that only you have partial information for sounds like a good idea, but unfortunately because the puzzle is so tight, it doesn't really matter what information they give you because you're just playing, well, I can actually play this card. And so you could say that the game feels like it's a joke. Well, that's kind of like putting together IKEA furniture, right? It's frustrating and you only have partial information. But as you're playing this game, you feel like the joke. It's not like if it's going to be a joke, then it should be funny or fun. And this definitely led towards more frustration. So I'm coming in at a 3 for this game. I very much disliked it. I did pull the expansion out as well to see if it gives more. It just makes it more limiting, more frustrating. And at the end, you feel like the joke. It wasn't fun. That's a 3. Next up, we're going to talk about Creature Feature. This is coming from Trick or Treat Studios, which kind of have this movie horror trope kind of going on in the classical monsters kind of genre. I really like their production. I like that they've picked a theme and they kind of stick to it, and this is no exception to that. So in this game, it's a hand management bluffing style where you're trying to get your actor or actresses chosen for a leading role. And so you're playing them out, and there's going to be this kind of trump system where if you play cards of a certain value, the higher one for lead versus the lower one for your supporting actor or actress versus vice versa. Again, kind of this trump order of things as you also are bidding on certain roles. It sounds fun. It has great artwork. I think their artwork, their theme, their production is always pretty on point. The gameplay though on this one, again, I was frustrated by. I'm going to come in at a 4 on this one. As you're doing these biddings and you're deciding when to pull out and kind of go down in the pecking order for a lesser role based on what you played out, you're kind of guessing with what people have, trying to play that meta, like read what they might have. Are they bluffing? Are they not? But at the end of the day, it didn't really ever feel like you called anyone's bluff. It just felt lucky or random. So the gameplay itself was kind of clunky, trying to, wait, now who wins if this is higher, but that's not higher, but you are higher? So it felt very clunky to figure out who won each time. And again, not that much fun. I am going to rate this one a little bit higher than Co-op, though I am going to come in at a 4 on this one because I did feel like the game functioned. I just didn't have fun with it. I thought that it was just too clunky, and honestly, by the end, I was ready for it to be over and have no intention of going back. So for me, that's going to be Creature Feature, coming in at a 4. All right, we're going to go a little more positive in this one and kind of move up the track here and go with Wonderwoods. This is coming to you from Blue Orange Games. In Wonderwoods, you are going out into the forest trying to collect different mushrooms, but you don't exactly know how much each mushroom is worth. There's a range that's provided, and you have a hand of cards that tells you what they're not worth, if you will, because at the beginning you go out and you assign a value, and you're trying to deduce as the game goes which ones are the highest value and collect the most of those. This leads to kind of some deduction as well as bluffing as you're trying to lead others astray as well. And I think that this worked well for this. I'm going to come in at a 6 for this game. So it it felt a little dry at the same point. I did think it was an interesting bluffing and deduction mechanism, but it's still, you never have quite enough information, or the information you get comes too late where you're already so invested in a potentially worthless mushroom. I think kind of the saving grace for that, it is a pretty short game. You're looking at about 20 minutes, so I'm a little bit more forgiving of that, but it just the ending can feel kind of soul-crushing, or again, lucky in that end. Again, I think that this does a good job of that in being short, in not having that frustration. It just, that end score feels very, oh good, I put all my eggs, or mushrooms in this case, in that basket and it paid off. Or wow, that person just took a wild stab in the dark and it worked out for them. So it does feel very swingy, but again, it's short and it is interesting for that 15 to 20 minutes. So I wouldn't quite recommend it, but I'd also happily sit down and play it. It actually reminds me a lot of the Reiner Knizia game, either what's called Wildlife Safari or Thor. It feels like kind of a re-implementation of those with a little bit less information to go. The information you get is slower to come by. So I still would probably play those over this. But even at that, I didn't dislike it. I would happily play it again, but I'm not going to seek it out either or recommend it. So Wonderwoods, that's going to be a 6 for me. All right, let's talk about a couple of games that I would recommend now. So first up, we're going to talk about Coral, and I'm going to come in at a 7 for this game. Coral is going to be an abstract game, which I know it's not my style. So this one kind of caught me off guard. I really started playing it just because I do think it is pretty, and I really love the production of these chunky bits. And I was just drawn in by the aesthetic of this game. It is very much an abstract, though. This game does go in and play that way in this puzzle, a little 2 to 4 player game in which you're trying to puzzle together and grow your territory of coral. I really think kind of what hooks in this game is it has this top-down view. So your territory is not how many blocks you have out there, but if you're looking down into the ocean at this coral, how much you can see. And so you're moving your coral around trying to grow this territory, and I think it works pretty well. Again, I'm going to come in at a 7. It's one that I would recommend if you do like abstract games. It's still not my style of play, but even in not liking my style of play, I'd happily sit down and maybe, every now and then I'll kind of get an itch, and if I kind of want that abstract, this is the kind I'm going to go to. It's quick, it's kind of punchy, it feels very tactile, or tactical, I'm sure, also tactile. It's tactile, great bits, but also tactical in you're just dealing with the information you get and trying to make the most of it. And again, I like that top-down view. It kind of challenges your thinking just a little bit. So for me, that's going to be a 7 for Coral. All right, next up we have Dinosaur Exhibit. Dinosaur Exhibit is a Kickstarter roll and write specifically for kids. When we talked about this on crowd surfing, I remember it kind of catching some heat from the guys about it being too simple. There's nothing innovative. It's really simple play. There's not enough there. And I remember thinking, and I believe at that point I said it as well, that the game is being talked about as a kid's game. And what I really liked about this one is it's talked about as a kid's game, but it doesn't look like a kid's game. Our kids see us playing these games. They see us playing these roll and writes. Then all of a sudden they want to play one and we're like, here's this cartoony art. That's great. That's fun. But kids get older and maybe they're not quite ready for a little bit deeper gameplay, but they want to feel like they're playing a real game, not a kid game. At least that's my 10-year-old boy. So I was really excited about this one to it looks like it's going to be a meatier game, but still is easy to understand with very intuitive mechanisms, and I really think that it hit that. So I'm going to come in for Dinosaur Exhibit at a 7. I do think that it is family weight, maybe even kid weight. There's not a whole lot of, I don't want to say depth to it, but there's not a lot of interlocking mechanisms that are really going to AP or challenge. You're not going to find yourself having to explain these rules over and over again. It's pretty simple, straightforward, fluid gameplay. And they do feel like they're playing a adult game, if you will, not adult themed, of course, but adult. It looks like a dinosaur exhibit, right? My one concern is I don't know how much, if it is engaging enough for it to hold a kid's interest, but it is short. It's pretty punchy. And I think for that just couple little years that they're not quite ready for the more advanced gameplay, but they don't want to play this cartoony fantasy game, it kind of hits a sweet spot in there for that. So with that, I definitely recommend it if you have a maybe kid kind of in that sweet spot, or somebody else in your family, that maybe wants a very simple gameplay with some solid mechanisms, but doesn't want to look like they're playing a toddler game. Check this one out. So that's going to be Dinosaur Exhibit. And last up here on this rapid fire roundup, we're going to talk about an Echo's audio mystery game. This one is specifically the Microchip. So in these Echo games, these are kind of escape room style games or puzzle games where you start out and you have very little information, but you're trying to like solve a crime, right? In this one specifically, you're trying to figure out what was going on and solve a mystery here. The Microchip is kind of futuristic, science-y, I guess, you know, because it does kind of go into some group of scientists, something go awry. Again, not wanting to spoil too much. And so as you're scanning different tiles, you're trying to put in order the timeline of what happened so that you can gather information. So you're scanning cards and listening to glean a little bit of information and figure out the timeline or figure out what happened so you can put this timeline together to ultimately figure out what happened in this whole story. I find these really engaging. This is the second one of this I've played, and I like this one significantly more. I'm going to come in at an 8 for this one. So for Echoes, the Microchip specifically, I'm going to put it at 8. I thought the story was much more engaging than the first one. I thought it was really interesting, and it does, there's less jumps in logic. And I definitely feel like there was times in this one that you kind of get excited. I don't quite get it. I get it. And that's fun in these games where you kind of have that moment of cleverness where it just kind of all clicks together. You're kind of struggling. I think this goes here, you know, and then you get one clue and you're like, boom, I got it, and it all just falls into place. That is so satisfying to have. And I did have that a couple times in this. I found that the story went a couple different ways. I didn't know right off the bat. I thought it might have been something else and I had to pull back on that and, you know, go on a different theory. But at the end of the day, it was solvable. And that's really important in these games for me, is at the end, you feel like you did some detective work and were successful. So with that, I really enjoyed my play of Echoes, the Microchip, and would recommend it at a 8. And there you have it. That's going to be 6 games that I've played recently and how much I liked them. As you saw, some of them are good and some of them are pretty terrible. I would strongly advise against these games. But that's going to be it for me today on this rapid fire roundup. Have you played these? Do you enjoy them? Let me know in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Camilla Cleghorn.